This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. I don't want to, but I have to return to Fulton County to talk about Fani Willis and whether she's going to be disqualified, along with Nathan Wade in the Georgia election interference case. When I say I don't want to, it's because I think this should have been put to bed early on by Judge MacAfee. I don't see, based on even the evidence that was presented, as salacious and invasion of privacy like that it was about Fani Willis's personal dating habits or how she handles cash, or to drag her father onto the stand. I mean, really, it gave me the creeps that she was being subjected to this. The core issue is not established, as far as I'm concerned, by 4 different days of evidentiary hearing and a final closing argument to demonstrate that she has an actual conflict of interest that requires her to be removed from the case. I mean, if all you had to do was rummage around the private life of the prosecutor in order to get her removed or him removed from the case, every defendant would do that. McAfee's got to worry that's going to open the floodgate in cases that don't have Donald Trump on the other side of the V in a criminal case. What's to stop anyone from commenting about the private affairs, no pun intended, of a prosecutor? That can't be the basis of the criminal justice system. Now, the reason this is still hanging around and there's still oxygen is that there seems to be a doubt in the judge's mind based on what I observed in this 4-hour or so or 5-hour or so hearing that ended, and now he's going to spend 2 weeks trying to decide what to do about the case. Because the case law says actual conflict of interest, and there is none here. Regardless of when she started her relationship or ended her relationship with Nathan Wade, if they went Dutch treat, if they paid or reimbursed each other with Venmo or cash when they took a little trip here and there, who cares? That does not demonstrate an actual conflict of interest, that the prosecutor is only prosecuting the case to benefit themselves financially, personally, or otherwise. I mean, again, Fani Willis did not indict Donald Trump. A grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, indicted Donald Trump on the heels and standing on the shoulders of a special purpose grand jury that recommended the indictment of Donald Trump after 7 months of hearing testimony and evidence, including of key witnesses within Donald Trump's own White House. That's how we got here. Who's prosecuting it? How she staffs her case? Who she pays, who she wants to pay $200 or $300 an hour to assist her and expand her team. I mean, look, it is obvious to me, not to be crass, that Fani Willis needs additional talented firepower to help her in her office. I don't want to overly criticize a fellow member of the bar, but I didn't think her defense team, let's just call it that, covered themselves in any great glory. I think they got the arguments out in sort of a workmanlike fashion, but I wasn't blown away by their abilities in the courtroom. And I think she probably could have done better hiring a special prosecutor or a special lawyer to have handled this very important decision about whether she's going to be disqualified. Fani Willis was in the courtroom, of course, but it wasn't appropriate for her to make the arguments. But putting that aside for a minute, the only thing that worries me is that there is a case. There's 2 things that worry me about where McAfee may end up, when he spins this wheel, where it ends up, what number it ends up on for him. And there's a case particularly called the Greater Georgia Amusement versus State case in 2012 that talks more about an appearance of impropriety standard for the disqualification of a prosecutor and less about actual intentional or actual conflict of interest. If it's conflict of interest, if that's the standard, the other side, the defense, has not met their burden, regardless of who lied or told the truth about which trip that Nathan Wade took with Fani Willis when they're on the same side of the V, both prosecuting a case. It's not like she's got a weird relationship with the victim, making her prosecution of the defendant seem inappropriate, or she's getting a financial benefit or kickback or working on commission for every prosecution that she makes. There are cases like that. But the cases that talk about appearance of impropriety seem to concern Judge MacAfee. He even mentioned it when Mr. Abate for the prosecutor's office talked about the cases, but didn't they? He stopped the lawyer for Fani Willis effectively and said, didn't that case also talk about appearance of impropriety? So it's on his mind. And it's on his mind because this Greater Georgia Amusement versus State case said, I'll give you an example. It said that, for instance, when a special prosecutor is effectively working on commission, only getting paid if he obtains the conviction, as opposed to hourly, the way Nathan Wade was paid, that creates an appearance of impropriety because it may, at least the public looking at it, would think that at times the prosecutor is putting his private interest in getting paid above his public duty to be a independent, ethical prosecutor, so to speak. So rather than put the person on the horns of that dilemma, he was removed on an appearance of impropriety standard because there needs to be integrity in the justice system. And that's the argument that the merchant husband and wife team that represent Mike Roman are making, and ultimately Steve Sadow, the lawyer for Donald Trump, that there's integrity will take a hit. The public's perception of justice will take a hit if you allow, I don't know, Fani Willis to have had a relationship with her special prosecutor. You almost can't complete the sentence with a straight face. That's the problem with their argument. But if Judge MacAfee goes down, gets to the fork in the road and goes down the appearance of impropriety route, which he shouldn't, then I think Fani Willis has a problem. He may actually, and he can't ignore it, he has to also look at the details of a prior motion to disqualify Fani Willis that was granted by the then Chief Judge of Fulton County, McBurney. You may recall, or if not, I'm going to tell you here, that over a year ago, when Fani Willis was also investigating and prosecuting Burt Jones, who was formerly a member of the Georgia State House, but was also a fake elector, he argued that she had a disqualifying conflict, at least an appearance of impropriety, because she donated and held a fundraiser for the person running against Burt Jones politically. And McBurney sort of slapped his forehead. We all remember the hearing there. That was also video. That was also on video. He slapped his forehead all to me. They said, well, what were you thinking in supporting his opponent while your office is investigating and prosecuting his adversary? That, in other words, that wasn't smart. And his concluding comment, even though he didn't use the term appearance of impropriety in his ruling, he said something that could be taken slightly out of context by Judge MacAfee and used against Fani Willis. He said that the prosecution of Burt Jones should not be burdened by legitimate doubt about the district attorney Fani Willis's motives. If MacAfee, you see where I'm going here, if MacAfee goes down that route and talks about people having legitimate doubts about the motivations of the district attorney, he could pull the trigger and get a divorce from Fani Willis and have her removed. I'll talk about process in a second. But even under McBurney's analysis, Chief Judge McBurney's analysis, there has to be legitimate doubt about motives. And I still don't see, when you map that standard onto this case, I still don't see how a reasonable person, not named Donald Trump or Mike Roman or one of the co-defendants, could have a legitimate doubt about the DA's motives because she's paying somebody she was in a relationship with $250 or $300 an hour to do the prosecutor's work. There is no, even though there was a lot of suggestion that Nathan Wade was only hired because he was the boyfriend, I haven't seen conflicting testimony that controverts Nathan Wade and Fani Willis's testimony that they started the relationship after Donald Trump was indicted, not before. And that Fani Willis, that Nathan Wade wasn't her first choice. I don't mean for dating. I mean for the prosecution team. That she went to a former governor of Georgia, Roy Barnes, who's a lawyer, and asked him to take the job. He turned it down because he didn't want to get attacked by Donald Trump in MAGA world. And so he declined. And so she went to Nathan Wade, a former judge, defense attorney, prosecutor, and the like. And so this attack on Nathan Wade's credentials by Ashley Merchant and the lawyer team for Mike Roman and Donald Trump sort of went nowhere. But even for the judge, he had to acknowledge that he didn't hear controverted testimony. I mean, the big witness that was supposed to be the big witness for the defense to prove that Fani Willis had lied to the judge about when the indictment, relationship with Nathan Wade started. Because the indictment, just to keep the calendar straight here, the indictment or the hiring date for Nathan Wade after the indictment is November 1st of 2021. And she claims that the relationship didn't start in earnest until 2022. Did they know each other before? Did they go out for some drinks? Maybe. But there wasn't a relationship until he was in the middle of his divorce. She's single, and 2022. So they try to catch her in a lie and make it look like it was the crime, not the cover-up, not the crime. That, well, regardless, she lied to the court. And they put on Terrence Bradley, a former law partner of Nathan Wade and his divorce lawyer, to testify. And Ashley Merchant waved around all these text messages that she had, like 400 text messages, rather than getting an actual sworn affidavit from him, in which he said, I think it definitely started before the indictment. I remember them dating, back when they were municipal judges together. And she said, aha, I'm going to bring him in. And based on these text messages, he's going to tell me that. And then on the stand, he said, no, I don't remember any of that. And I don't have any knowledge at all, actual knowledge, other than gossip about when their relationship actually started. And then Ashley Merchant almost her head almost exploded. Oh, the text messages. And the judge said in the hearing on Friday, to the point of how is that actually a lie when he said he didn't remember on the stand under oath, Terrence Bradley. Why am I to discredit that and find an adverse inference that the witness was lying? How do you know he wasn't lying, for instance, Miss Merchant, in the text messages, the judge said, which I thought was a very good way of getting to the point. How do you know he wasn't lying then? And he told the truth on the stand. In other words, you just take Terrence Bradley off the board completely for anybody. I don't think he can be credited by the fact finder, which is the judge, at all, by either side, in favor of either side. Take him off the board. So the judge has no other evidence that suggests that Fani Willis lied to the court. So that I don't think that's an issue any longer. And now we're back to the appearance of impropriety. Now, one argument they didn't make that I thought they were going to is the way that Fani Willis acted during her testimony in her own defense, which I appreciated. And I would have done the exact same thing. But it got testy at times, understandably, when she fired back at the defense counsel and said, I'm not on trial here. You've gotten confused, and everything else that she said. So I was wondering if, and the judge could still make that a finding himself, if that would have made him uncomfortable that she no longer appeared to be sort of an independent-minded prosecutor, but now, whether she had it before or not, now seems to have a little bit of an axe to grind to get back at them having dragged her through the mud. You see where that's going? Didn't come up per se in the hearing. What the other focus in the hearing was, which also gives me concern, is her speech that she gave on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend at the AME Bethel, a very famous historic Black church in Georgia, in which she defended herself without naming names. With a lot of, oh Lord, why, was kind of her rhetorical mechanism, and then gave a 30-minute speech. Sadow's, the lawyer for Donald Trump, argued, I can't get a fair trial now. She's basically in a predominantly Black community at a Black church, argued that my client is attacking her because of her race. That undermines the jury. I'm not in love with that argument. I don't think that's a winner for them, but it has a more compelling ring to it than the other arguments about her having an actual conflict of interest. But my concern on this hot take is that the judge at that fork in the road leaves the actual conflict analysis and goes to appearance of impropriety analysis, and then uses McBurney, his colleague who was the chief judge, who already disqualified her, right? It's sort of like the ketchup bottle that's hard to unstick, but once you open it, it's easy, right? She's already been disqualified once. So it's not like that glass ceiling has already been shattered, unfortunately. A colleague of ours that I admire and a friend of mine personally, Katie Fang over on MSNBC, I like the way she put it. I'm going to read it out loud here on something that she wrote in an essay of hers. She's a former prosecutor too, I believe in Fort Lauderdale in the Broward County Prosecutor's Office before she became a legal commentator. She said that if you believe the defense's theory, that then Willis pulled off some Kaiser Soze level plan, quoting, alluding to the Usual Suspects movie. So she said that in order for this to work, their theory to work, before Wade was appointed, Fani Willis would have had to intentionally approach Georgia Governor Roy Barnes to offer him what basically ended up being Wade's role as the special prosecutor, knowing that Barnes would turn her down. She intentionally then would have had to have gone to 2 other special prosecutors to agree to the same low hourly rate as Wade's. Then she would have had to intentionally got the chief financial officer of Fulton County, Georgia, to conspire with her to approve Wade's monthly invoices, and then convince a special purpose grand jury to recommend multiple charges against multiple defendants, including Donald Trump, and then convince a grand jury to return an indictment against 19 co-defendants, including Mike Roman and Donald Trump, all to make sure that her then boyfriend would be able to make $250 an hour, which is a very low rate, which is probably 1/3 of what he made in private practice, so she could travel with him on a cheap cruise out of Florida with his mother and spend personal time with him in other cities, including staying at a DoubleTree Inn while they sip some wine in wine country. Thank you, Katie Fang. I like the way you put that. And so I, with credit and with a tip of the hat, I applaud you. But that's where we are. So we got 2 weeks to cogitate, speculate, and to give you information and analysis based on our view of the world as practicing lawyers right here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch network. If you like shows led by lawyers who know what they're talking about at the intersection of law, politics, and justice, you've come to the right place. You've come to Legal AF. And we do it every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern time on this YouTube channel. You knew that. You're right here now. Help them get to 3 million. I love that number. 3 million free subscribers. Because the bigger they get as a network, really, the more your voice is heard and resonates. And then you can follow me on hot takes like this one. If you like this kind of hot take, you know what to do. Leave me a comment. Give me a thumbs up. Literally, it helps. It keeps the lights on. It's not like cable. We're just watching it. Helps with the ratings. You got to actually be interactive with us and let your voice be heard through that process. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.